Hi, John.
Okay, I'm muted. There we go.
Perfect.
We're all good?
Yes, Shannon was joining the call, so let me just reply to him on with his link.
Yeah, it looks like he's in Teams.
You're in Teams?
No, he's in Teams. I just saw him pop in. Oh, there he is.
It's weird. Patty, I see you. John, I hear you, but I don't see you on the call.
Uh, Shannon, I think my Teams is giving me trouble. Can you hear me? Oh my God, it just closed up. It froze. What a mess.
That's why we're getting on early.
Yes, exactly. And the Zoom links always give us trouble because everybody has a different Zoom link, so we send it very early and then people cannot find it.
Well, I'll just interview you. How's that?
I know. No, I think we just need to send him his Zoom link and it should be fine. But the good thing is that your camera is working, microphone is working.
Now, if I have like notes behind my screen like I do now, you can't see them, right?
We cannot see them, right?
Okay. All right, cool. I'll do
And
my best not to read off them.
it is fine. I think it's that like once you get in a kind of in a flow, it'll be much easier.
Yeah, this is my first time doing this, so I'm excited. I was nervous. I'm definitely nervous, but I'm excited too.
I know, but I always think like this is something that like you do all the time, like talking about talent acquisition and recruiting.
I think Shannon's trying to join the Teams meeting.
Teams. Okay.
Let me pop in there.
My Zoom.
Hey, Shannon. So in the pre-meeting link, if you open that, there should be two Zoom links. There should be one for me, one for you. Because we're on Teams right now, and Patty and I are in Zoom. Got it? You see it? Yeah, join that one. All right, see you in a minute. Okay, he's gonna join.
Okay, perfect. I was looking for it. Thank you. Yeah, so the idea is, again, this is the first time we're doing it. The idea was really to kind of promote our services because I think even the sales team, I think, has a hard time like promoting like recruiting. We've been focused on CFOs. So I think the idea is for you to be kind of well known. Hi, Shannon. You're muted.
All right, there we go.
Perfect. I'm sorry about all of this, but I'm glad we joined early so we have time to kind of fix all of these little things. So usually how we do this with Meet the VC, which is a little different, but the idea is that we introduce kind of Escalon, what do we do, like big picture. But because this is a new service line webinars, our intention really is to kind of highlight the recruiting part, which my feeling is that we haven't really, well, obviously Jonathon is new and we're putting more kind of effort into it, but the sales team haven't really been able to kind of share and speak to what we do.
Yeah.
So
Patty, how do we find these people, I guess, and how do we pull them into this and invite them, and what do they know? I get just a little bit of that.
Webinar? Yeah, so we have a good list of people that have been joining our Meet the VC and different events. So that's kind of our list. And then on top of that, we do LinkedIn ads and we do Facebook ads.
Okay.
So,
are there existing clients or these are all prospective clients?
Some could be existing clients. It's a big list of people that are either existing clients or prospective clients.
Okay.
Usually it's our target audience is like founders and early stage startups that need more of a, again, we've been focusing on Meet the VC, which is very like, fundraising and finances.
Yeah.
So it's a little different, but for this one, we focus on people that are like HR, talent acquisition, like founders that are just like struggling. Either it's too much time from their, like busy schedule, or they just really don't know how to interview, how to talk to people. So we kind of created a new list of people, both people that have attended events, and two, in promotional, we try to really capture those like people that work in HR and want to kind of be more robust,
Okay.
and two, people that are founders.
Okay. And I guess there were no RSVPs, I assume, so we don't know how many attendees. It's just whoever shows up, I guess. Is that right? Or
We did have RSVP. We had about 80 people. I
Okay.
always assumed that about 50% of the RSVPs are gonna show up.
Yeah.
Then we're recording the event, so tomorrow we'll send the recording and we add it to the YouTube channel.
Okay.
So,
Great.
yeah, so the idea is kind of twofold. One, to give like people know about Escalon recruiting, and then second, also it's a great opportunity for you guys to be kind of thought leaders. Like marketing really wants to start that idea of thought leaders for our team members.
Okay.
So it's a work in process.
Sounds good. And John, I think as you mentioned, you're going to be asking the questions and I'll give answers, but I assume you'll jump in and provide your perspective on some of the questions as well. Is that fair?
I don't think we can hear you.
Sorry, are you talking to me, Shannon? Sorry, I just got a glitch.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying,
sorry.
Yeah, I think you know this because obviously you're going to ask the questions. I'll have answers, but
Yeah.
Feel free. I assume you jump in and give your perspective as well, right?
Yeah. So again, I didn't. Yeah, my plan was just to, as I outlined in the PowerPoint, there is just I'll bring up certain topics, certain trends we're seeing right now, 2023, 2024. There's a lot of hot things going on, post pandemic and whatnot. So I'll kind of discuss some of that stuff, and then just ask you basic questions around what you're seeing, what you've seen in the past. So really kind of guide you into the topic, and that way you're better to answer. Your answers look great, by the way. I mean, like really thought provoking. So I think it'll be a good webinar.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think
Who's
really
helps, nervous?
Don't be. The good thing is you don't see the attendees, so that's always
well,
nice.
that's okay. Yeah. Until you mentioned there was 80 joiners, I was like,
So Jonathon, I will be kind of managing the questions. So what I am thinking is I'll just kind of grab all the questions that I think are pertinent or like make sense, and I'll send them to you through Teams. So once we do kind of questions at the end, we have like a good group of questions that you might want to kind of look at.
Okay.
For the audience questions, you're saying?
Audience questions, okay. Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes. I think like adding them at the end, make sure that your flow is not kind of like changed.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Up to you. I mean, I'm fine if people want to raise their hand, with the Zoom thing, and make it more back and forth like that. I think rather than wait, sometimes you wait till the end, you can run out of time, or people, lose interest in the questions, or maybe we've moved on to another areas. I'm fine. I mean, John, it's up to you. I'm fine if people, if we're on remote work, for example, if they want to jump in, raise their hand and ask something while we're there, that's fine by me too. I think the interruption doesn't bother me.
John, what do you prefer?
I don't have a preference. So basically, if they raise their hand, they'll ask the question, but they won't be on video, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they can speak because we're in webinar and there are.
Oh, I see. Oh, never mind. Okay, all right. I was thinking they would copy on a Zoom. Gotcha. Okay, never mind.
But what we can do is they'll ask the questions kind of in real time. And then, John, if you prefer, I can just send them to you on whatever chat you prefer. And then you can kind of see if you want to ask them, be like, hey, Shannon, like this came up. I have an experience on this. Like, do you want to touch on this topic?
Sure, yeah, either way works.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
just send them through, I guess, as they're coming in, and if they're relevant, we can certainly answer them on the spot. Yeah, it makes it a little bit more engaging.
Perfect. Yeah. So some questions might be very particular to a person. So I either change them or like skip them, right? It's like,
Okay,
I have this issue with my employee, like, what do I do type of deal.
right. Okay, yeah. Yeah, any like HR related, more geared towards HR VP, maybe skip those. We'll kind of
Perfect.
stick to the recruitment stuff. And
Okay.
then
Yeah.
anything folks want to ask, Shannon and his experience. I mean, obviously there might be questions around some of the roles he's held, as a manager. We'll dig into some of the things he's done to, promote things like learning development, or just, keeping care of the well-being of the worker, right?
Yeah.
So we can dive into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think it's really cool when you guys share your experiences, like, hey, this is what happened, this is a story, right? Like, as humans, we love stories. So all of that is helpful, and it makes it more like personalized.
Cool, because I'll talk to them about how burnt out I am right now at work.
Exactly. And what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a team of how many now?
We've got 4, and we're about to hire another resource in India. So yeah, we've got 17 roles for external clients we're working on as of
Oh
today.
wow, that's great.
That's
Yeah, it
really
just took
exciting.
off all of a sudden. So
It's got to be such a market need, right? I mean, if you're a small company, you have
yeah,
no idea how to hire and recruit
yeah,
properly.
yeah. We're seeing some existing clients, some new clients coming in. We just had 2 sign back today. So yeah, pretty excited. But my fear is that, do we have enough support?
Yeah.
If I don't want this thing to just take off like wildfire and we're not prepared for it. So we'll
I
get
mean,
there.
okay, so we have 5 minutes. I don't know if you guys need to use the restroom, get some water. This is perfect time for that.
And we'll use the link that's we use the Zoom link, right? That's in the meeting. Okay.
This is it. You don't have to leave.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, this is it. Okay.
This
Okay.
is it. Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to make sure that we were on the correct Zoom link already.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes. So this is it. So if you need to kind of go, I'll stay here. And then when you join, I'll kind of like get us ready to go live.
Okay. Cool.
Perfect. We are back. Yeah, John, do you prefer John or Jonathan?
John's fine.
Okay, so John, do you prefer that I send you the questions on Zoom or on Teams?
How will it pop up on Zoom? Will it be
Let me
like in a?
send you now. I think in Zoom it might get lost a little because you'll see my question and then
Okay, yeah.
other people's questions. So it's up to you what if I don't know if you can manage multiple screens or things like that. So
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I think Zoom makes most sense. I just shut down my
okay,
team so other people
okay,
aren't pinging
let's
me and
keep it
stuff.
like that.
Yeah, that
And,
works.
and then if you can both do you guys have Mac?
I do, yeah.
I don't know. I have PC.
Okay, so for Shannon, if you can put yourself in like do not disturb so you don't get notifications, that'll be great.
Oh yeah, yeah. I haven't turned off. We're good.
Okay, and then John, if you can just close like your email or anything that pings like Teams, that'll be great. Okay,
Okay.
so it's 12 p.m. Eastern Pacific Standard Time. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to pin you both so we can see you side to side, so it doesn't kind of go back when each of you are speaking. I'm gonna mute myself and I'm gonna turn off the camera, but I'll be here kind of monitoring the chat, answering any questions and helping you all. So just if you need anything, just send me a private message, okay?
Sounds good.
Sounds good?
Yep.
Perfect. John, are we ready to go live?
We are.
Perfect.
I guess that's our cue.
I think so.
All right, great. Excellent. Welcome, everybody. My name is John King, and we are going to be covering the topic of mastering the art of hiring, 2024 trends, challenges, and innovative solutions. So we'll get kicked right off here. So I was going to do a little introduction. I've been myself following up on quite a few trends for 2024. And, hiring trends, some of the hiring trends that we're seeing, they definitely play a crucial role in shaping the future of the talent acquisition for various companies, including Escalon here, and hiring decisions within an organization. So in this webinar, we're going to discuss the latest trends, 2024, and transformation of the hiring landscape, and employ certain insights into how organizations can adapt and meet the demands of an ever-changing workforce. So today we're talking to Shannon O'Neill. Shannon is the head of the CFO and FP&A practice at Escalon. So welcome, Shannon.
Thank you, John.
Great, great. So Shannon, just give us a brief introduction into your role at Escalon, and we'll go from there.
Sure, thanks. And I'll give my general background first, if that's okay. So I have
Sure.
First, thanks to everyone for joining. It's great to have all of you here, and there's a lot to discuss. My background, so you know who you're talking with. I've spent most of my career as a CFO. Started my career at EY in the audit practice, went back there 20 years later on the consulting side, but in between spent most of my time in the media entertainment space and also e-commerce. Been lucky to actually have a lot of really cool jobs in the media space. I was the CFO and then head of digital at Golf Channel. I was the president of Travel Channel for a number of years, and then was also an executive and COO at Food Network and HGTV. So I've had a chance over that time to either directly or indirectly manage every function of the company, including HR, and have either directly or indirectly hired hundreds of people. So this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I joined Escalon about 6 months ago. If you don't know a lot about Escalon, we basically, for startups and small business, provide what we call essential business services. Like if you run your own company, all of you here, you have to worry about your product, your marketing, your sales, possibly your technology. We do all the things that are important and critical, but not core. So finance, accounting, tax, HR, recruiting are all things that we offer. We have about 2,000 clients in this space. For me specifically, as John mentioned, we have a team of about 50 CFOs that are effectively CFO consultants or fractional consultants for our clients. And then we have a team of FP&A leads. They're generally directors or managers of FP&A. We also have about 100 people in the US within accounting, controllers and staff accounting. And then in India, we've got over 1,000 people that do a lot of our transactional support work around AP, AR, GL, closing the books, payroll, those types of things. So I'll pause there, and that's my background. Thrilled about this webinar, and I'll hand back to John.
Thanks, Shannon. Appreciate that. Great introduction, and it's great to be working with you here at Escalon. So I'll introduce myself as well. My name is John. I reside in Tampa, Florida, originally from Toronto, Canada. So if you hear an accent, that is my northern native language. I've been with Escalon since November of last year. Previous companies that I've worked for, actually, I'll go back to the beginning. My early days of recruiting, I've been in the industry for about 17 years. I've always done full life cycle recruiting. I worked for a small agency in Toronto when I kickstarted my career back in 2007. So I got a taste of agency side, both selling services to clients as well as bringing candidates in. So always been a full desk recruiter myself. Full desk meaning, everything from creating job descriptions, creating structural interviewing techniques, creating, end-to-end recruitment design. So that's been my focus over the last 17 years. Companies that I've worked for, Accenture, Pricewaterhouse, Deloitte, Workday, IBM. So I spent a majority of my career in the Big Four, working on transformational type projects within consulting for some of those Big Four companies. I've had a great career, long-standing career with some of these companies. PwC is individually responsible for developing, designing, and recruiting for PwC Salesforce practice. So that was a huge undertaking. I think we started with about 17 consultants onshore here in the US. By the time I left, it was up to over 400. So a major player in the Salesforce space. I joined Escalon here in 2023 in November. Actually, the role was presented to me from a past colleague that I used to work with at PwC. So it was nice to join a company with some familiar faces. And my role here at Escalon is a split role. So it gives me the opportunity and advantage to work both or bring my skill sets both from the agency days, but also from in-house recruiting. So I'm responsible for all talent acquisition in-house, strategy design, building rapport with stakeholders and across many different verticals, including working with Shannon very closely as well. The other flip side of that is part of our Escalon recruiting done business. And so we go into existing clients, sometimes new clients, and we offer recruiting services, much like an agency would do as well. And that's really what attracted me to this role. So glad to be here. And, we'll kick things off with some of the trends that we're seeing in the recruitment and talent acquisition space as of 2024. So as a lot of people know, 2023 and 2024, we've seen a lot of layoffs. If you're on LinkedIn, if you're on any of the career pages or business news websites, we've seen a lot of layoffs, especially within the tech sector. In fact, about 34,000 layoffs up to date. I was doing some research, and we're at about 34,000 across the US, both in the tech sector and finance sector. And so, it's been tough. When I go on LinkedIn in the morning, I see folks, past colleagues of mine, who have been let go from positions and people scrambling looking for jobs. So, I think it's part of the economic churn and burn that we face sometimes within this space. I experienced this back in 2008, during the economic crisis. It certainly isn't to that capacity, and I don't think it will be. But it's just part of the changing environment that we're in. Companies like Meta, Amazon, PayPal, UPS, these are some big Fortune 500 companies that recently let go quite a few of their workforce. But when you look at it from a trend standpoint, a lot of these companies brought in a ton of workers back in 2022. So we had a huge uptick in hiring across the board. And so things have kind of leveled out at this point. So it's really a natural progression within the economics that we face today. So I think there's some good news on the horizon from what I've been seeing. We could see a shift in hiring demand, especially in the tech and finance sectors. I was doing some research and, according to the research that I found, 61% of companies expect to increase investment in things like upskilling current employees, more skills-based hiring, really doubling down on remote and hybrid workforce initiatives. And as well as, more data-driven HR and recruitment to gain insights into hiring trends. So Shannon, I wanted to ask you, within your current organization, are you seeing a fear of job loss within your employees?
Yeah, and I think even going back to the macro level, I think first the answer is yes. And I think that's pretty normal these days. But I think at the macro level, as you said, I've been through a lot of ups and downs in the economic cycles as you have. This is the most confusing cycle I've ever been in. I mean, if you're an optimist, there are lots of reasons to be bullish. If you're a pessimist, there are lots of reasons to worry the sky is falling. And I have no idea. So it is a very confusing time. So I think from a macro perspective, there's a lot of uncertainty. And then for the economy in general, and then as you mentioned, if you read the headlines, there's a lot of doom and gloom, and actually a lot of mixed results. There's a lot of hiring. Cyber is growing, AI is growing, so a lot of areas of growth, but a lot of areas of retraction too. So I think that's confusing at the macro level, and then at the micro or company level, I think change is the norm, right? I think we're in an era where status quo does not work, and so I think every company, no matter how big or small, you're changing things, you're changing the org structure, you're moving people around. You might be ramping up, you might be ramping down in other areas, and that creates uncertainty as well. The other piece, I honestly, I think there are a lot, we'll talk about it later. I think remote work, there are a lot of good things about it. One of the negatives is it can be very isolating. It's very easy to feel out of touch, out of the loop. And we'll talk about the importance of communication. So I think the answer is yes. At Escalon and most of our clients, I think uncertainty about where a person fits in and what their future is, I think is the norm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think because, I just touched on a point, we deal with and we work with a lot of startup companies. So what's the future hold for these startup companies? If there is a huge shift and downturn in the economy, what does that mean for our clients a lot of clients are in the startup space. So, great points there. Shannon, how do you keep employees focused on productivity rather than worry about a potential round of layoffs?
Yeah, I think it goes back to kind of what we're talking about with remote work. I think over communication is going to be the answer to almost every question you're going to ask. I think especially in a remote environment and when there's uncertainty, as leadership, you need to be out front as often as possible, and being very honest with your people too. Look, if the company is struggling, you need to tell people that and be very candid about where the company is, what the plan is to get out of that. I think too often leaders are afraid to do that. They fear that if they give people the bad news, it'll cause panic. I actually think it's quite the opposite. I think if you don't tell people what the challenges are, they will read into it on their own and make up their own challenges, and they'll either be right or wrong. I think you're always better tackling those head on and being very direct from a communication standpoint. I think, we'll talk about it, I think later, I think learning and development is critical and showing that you're always investing in your people. I think, laying out a clear career path for each of your people in every function, I think is really important. So I kind of stop there. I think those elements are really critical.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading somewhere, I forget what company it was, I won't name face anyone, but they got an email, one of the employees or several of the employees on, I think, a Thursday, and by Friday they were told to leave. And a lot of these employees were full time. So I mean, that type of communication, I think, is key within an organization. And I know it's difficult, bigger the organization is, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with people's lives too, right? So
Yeah, and you're right. And I would add to your point, I think, and I should have mentioned this, I think even when you have to make cuts and reductions, I think how you as a company and leadership, how you handle that is really important. Again, the inclination sometimes is to be private about it and just kind of like sneak the cuts out of the building. Doesn't make sense. People will see that. Your current employees or existing employees will see how you treat people on the way out. So treat people, as humanely as possible. Treat them well. If you can give them severance, do that. If you can give them benefits for a period of time, do that, and be very, very upfront about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one real quick point too. I know something that Escalon's done really well, is employ, company surveys every quarter, really to get a finger on the pulse of what's going on with the employee, how they're feeling day to day, and really getting that feedback, and that feedback going directly to the leadership. And I think that's key. I think that's an important piece of the puzzle when we look at employee value and how committed the employees and the employer is to the actual process.
Yep, agreed.
Awesome. Let's move on. So next we'll talk a little bit about upskilling and how do we retain great talent. So a term that's been thrown around is year of the manager, and they're talking 2023, 2024. Where a lot of emphasis is put on managers to take care of their teams. And we kind of talked a little bit about this, but in your experience, or maybe what you're currently doing right now, Shannon, what are some of the habits and strategies you need your managers within your teams to put emphasis into those employees?
Yeah, so I should just start. I've worked at a lot of companies, big and small, and almost every single place I've worked, we actually do not do a good job training and teaching people to be managers. It's actually, I think, one of the biggest gaps that I've seen is you take someone who's a great individual contributor and they get promoted several times, and all of a sudden they're managing 8 people and they have no clue how to do that. And then they struggle, which is not surprising. So I think, before we make people managers, we need to make sure that they are properly prepared and trained to be managers, because it is a very different skill set from being an individual contributor that overachieves and does all the work themselves to being someone that can lead a team, properly delegate, take the time patiently to explain, provide context. They're very different skill sets and often in conflict if you don't do a good job from a training perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that. And, I know something we've done at Escalon, and I've done at previous companies as well, but, having a new hiring manager, if they're going to be part of an interviewing team, the requirement is that they go through, in-depth interviewer training.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of companies, smaller companies, even larger companies that really don't put an emphasis on training the hiring manager in important areas like interviewing. And so, I'm proud to say that's something Escalon is embarked upon and put into their processes. Let me ask you this, Shannon. How important is it for companies to invest in things like, as we talked about, upskilling their current workforce, adopting more learning and development, as you discussed, skills-based training? Can you provide an example of where this has happened in your career, maybe a client or a company that you've worked for in the past?
Yeah, I think, it's important in every function of the company. All of us, we want to feel like we're improving and learning every day and contributing. And when the company invests in you, you feel that, and that's great. I think from a culture and morale perspective, I think specifically, I think in tech is where you really see the credit. If you're a really good tech employee, if you're not learning, you're falling behind. You're falling behind the marketplace of knowledge, and they know that. A good tech employee knows that. So it is critical that you're constantly giving those professionals an opportunity to better their experience, to better their resume. I think cross training, giving people opportunities to move in and out of different groups, I think is really key. So they can learn and do different things. Mentorship, I think I'm a huge fan of mentorship. I think at all levels and all functions. And it just shows an investment of not just the company, but your peers and your leaders investing in you as well. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's often a question I get asked from candidates is, what does your mentorship program look like? What does the training and development opportunities look like? Candidates before they come to a company, if they're good, strong candidates, they've got options, right? And so it's not only their job to sell us on their skill set and their skill set, sorry, but us to also sell what we can provide. Not only from a positioning standpoint, but from an overall career development standpoint. So, great points there. Love it. Okay, we'll move on. Let's talk a little bit about the dreaded remote versus back to office mandates. We've been seeing a lot of companies mandating their employees back to office. Since the pandemic, we've kind of seen this sort of tug of war between CEOs and its workforce, right? So, many companies paranoid about things like workers' productivity. They began ordering people back to the office. And in some cases, and I've actually experienced this in previous companies, candidates being mandated back and not living close to those cities. So either they're given their option of relocating, so maybe relocating their entire family, their entire life to a major city, or taking some kind of severance and parting ways with the company. So I won't name names, but there's been some large companies that I've worked with in the past that have actually enforced this, which is a little bit disheartening and seems a little bit impersonal in the way that they handled it. Question to you: what are your thoughts about companies, doing this sort of thing, mandating its employees back to the office or leave the company?
Yeah, I mean, I back in late 2020, I started telling everyone who would listen that your strategy for going back to the office, whatever that is, whatever that means, is one of the most important things that the leadership team has to figure out. And I said, and I feel even more so now, that the companies that do it well, it's a huge opportunity. The companies that do it poorly, it's a huge risk and a huge liability. And you're right, we've seen all the above. I mean, the range is really. I think the bottom line is no one knows the right answer. And within that kind of environment, I think flexibility trumps rigidity. And I think some of the examples that you gave and we've seen, where certainly in New York, you had a lot of the banking companies that were, I think, very draconian in saying you're going back to work. And that's after 2 years of people. I'm sure I spent a lot of time in New York, commuting in and out of New York. Some people spend 2, 3, 4 hours a day doing that. And to not do that for 2 years and then be asked to do that again every day is a really, really major change. So look, that's their decision. And if people love working there, they'll still work there. If they don't, they'll leave. So I actually think for us as Escalon, it's been an opportunity. I think for a lot of our clients that are generally smaller, actually many of our clients either got rid of most or not, or in many cases, all of their office space during COVID and have moved to almost 100% remote working environment. We're pretty close at Escalon to that. And I think for the most part, it's been a big benefit to us and some other companies that, we're able to cast a much wider net from a hiring perspective. We provide, great flexibility to our people and still very competitive, compensation at the same time. So you're getting a lot without giving a lot up. I think, I think we mentioned it before, there are downsides, and I think we're still struggling to figure out how best to handle that. Look, and the one big downside, if you become disenfranchised or disoriented or unhappy at your company, it's really easy to look for another job. It is. I mean, you're not going to an office. You don't have to sneak outside or into a room somewhere to take a phone call with a recruiter. You can do it from your desk at home whenever you want. So if you're unhappy, it's really easy to interview and find another job. So as employers, we need to, really, really focus on keeping our people in the tent, making sure they feel like they're part of the culture, and that we're taking care of them and we value them. And that's hard to do in a remote environment. It's certainly much harder.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. Yeah. And I know a lot of the candidates I talk to, especially, post-pandemic, where people have gotten used to the remote lifestyle. I used to ask candidates back in the day, well, I don't know if I could work from home. I don't know how productive I would be. There's so many distractions. To now we're in a place where, is it remote? That's the only type of work I'm looking for is remote, because they've gotten used to the luxury of working from home. In your experience, can employees be just as effective working remotely as in an office environment?
I think employees in general are even more productive working from home, and that's why I've been surprised by a lot of the some of the leadership examples that we kind of alluded to, where and I've seen CEOs that just they don't trust their people, and they assume that because they don't see them in an office working that they're not working, and I think that's a terrible assumption. I actually think back to the commuting recapture. If you're commuting a couple hours a day, that's a lot of time you've reclaimed, one, to do more work, but also two, to do to balance your life in a better way and do things that make you happy as well. So I think it's a win on that side. But look, it's easy to play Tetris in your office too, right? So this notion that someone needs to be in a building to be working is nonsense, I think.
Sure, or gossip around the water cooler, right? As they say.
That's right.
Yeah, I know. My personal experience, I've been working remotely for 15 years, and quite honestly, if they asked me to go into an office, I would probably jump ship pretty quick. It'd be quite the transition for sure. But I can understand, in terms of you mentioned the isolation piece, feeling as a collaborative team, face to face. There's no comparison there, but things are changing as we advance through technological advances, and it's becoming more apparent that remote work is here to stay, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, actually, John, you may have been on it. We at Escalon back last month. We did for all of our remote employees, which is probably 80% of our people. We did a Zoom and hired a mixologist. Everyone had the ingredients mailed to their homes, and we all made drinks together. And it sounds a little silly, but it was fun. It was actually a lot of fun. And after the first drink, people got had even more fun, a little more honest, and a good kind of answer back and forth. But it was great. I mean, those are the things you have to try to do to get people together in an informal sense, because you lose that. You don't have the water cooler, you don't have the cafeteria or the coffee break room, whatever it is. You need to have that informal gathering opportunity.
Yeah. I know one thing that we're implementing here at Escalon, even from an HR standpoint and recruitment as well, is we have certain geographical locations around the country. We're trying to keep employees into certain areas. So I'll give you an example. I live in Tampa. I have 2 employees that work here in Tampa as well. So it's nice for us to get together for a lunch and learn, or just happy hour, as you mentioned, just to create that face-to-face contact. It's always a thrill because I actually like working with these people. So
oh, good. Yeah, you can create natural pods, geographically. At least you have a small group of people you work with, you can get together. Exactly.
Yeah, great. All right, moving on. So, we'll talk a little bit about employee burnout. I think this is an important topic, considering post-pandemic, we've got inflation rates, uncertain economic times. So, people are struggling not only, within the work environment, but I think, within their own personal lives. So I wanted to touch base on this. I think it's an important topic. So, again, we live in disruptive times, and with the pandemic, it seems employee burnout levels have increased, and I think this is a real phenomenon that we're facing right now, and it needs to be looked at, I think, from a top layer down. So, in your personal opinion, like, how do you monitor employee health, well-being, burnout within your current organization?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. I think first, recognition of hard work is critical. I mean, there is nothing. Working hard can be exhausting and tough. Working hard without recognition is terrible, right? That is not a good. That's a toxic place to work. So I think first, when your people are being asked to work harder than normal or work more hours than normal, you've got to call that out. Preferably give them some monetary incentive or recognition. Give them some public recognition within the company. That always feels good. I think beyond that, I think you want to create. Well, second thing I'll add, I think leadership, will often talk about work-life balance, but they don't live it.
Mhm.
And that trickles down. If you have a CEO that works 80 to 100 hours a week, they expect their direct reports to do the same, and that trickles down multiple levels. And all of a sudden, everyone feels they have to work that way. Look, that might be the way the company wants to be, and that's fine. But work-life balance starts at the top, starts at leadership, and then flows down. So you've got to live that and encourage that. And then, I think you've got to have, foster an open environment where your people feel comfortable, to raise their hand and just say, hey, I'm not okay. I'm struggling. I haven't seen my family for more than an hour a night for a while. I need a break. People need to feel like it's a safe place or safe company to raise their hand and say that. And then if that's the case, it's great if the company can offer, support, mental health support, counseling, when as life gets in the way and those things happen, when the company has your back, that's huge as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And even at Escalon, it was surprising to come in and find out, we offer things like, flexible PTO programs,
Yeah.
extended benefits, compensation, performance reevaluations, actually even the surveys, company-wide surveys. I think I'm a big fan of those. It really, it speaks to the heart of the company itself. And, allows upper management leadership to really dive in on what's really going on with the heart of the company. So I think those are all important too.
Well, as you know, and I've learned this the hard way over the years, the cost of hiring a new person far exceeds the cost of saving a really good employee. So all of these things, it may seem like extra cost, but if you're making your employees happy and improving their satisfaction and their retention, it pays for itself. Absolutely pays.
Absolutely. As a recruiter, I have the number. I actually know what that number is in US dollars, and it's $18,000 to replace an employee. So, especially top tier, A player, that's what we used to call them back in the day. And they're highly sought after. So if you're not keeping your great people happy, they're gonna go elsewhere. So yeah, great topic. I appreciate your insight around that too. Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about, and this is near and dear to my heart. For me in a recruitment position, I'm always harking on my clients, stakeholders. Let's talk about employer branding. Let's talk about why people would want to come work for this company. It's important to get that message out there, especially as a recruiter, because a lot of the candidates that I work with and seek after, they're not on job boards. I mean, this isn't your typical candidate. And not to knock candidates that are on job boards looking for work. There's some great employees out there that are unfortunately in a situation where they've been let go. And I know some of them personally, so I can vouch for those people. But my strategy in recruitment is also to target candidates that are passive. These are candidates that are currently working, they're successful. They've built a career for themselves, and aren't necessarily looking, but they are open to talking about new opportunities. It's amazing when I go and reach out to candidates in my network and LinkedIn and just kind of touch base and let them know what I'm doing and seeing what they're up to. And it's amazing how many of those conversations can turn into is there an opportunity at your current employer? Maybe we can talk about a potential opportunity. So those discussions really happen around that networking and connection. But really, the employer branding, it's really about maintaining a favorable reputation among current and potential employees. So this can include aspects of company culture, values, work environment, benefits, just overall employee satisfaction. And a strong employer branding, can help, as I mentioned, attract top talent and reduce turnover. So, how important is it for hiring managers within your organization, Shannon, to establish a strong employer brand when attracting or retaining talent, but also clients?
I will tell you, I've seen this done well and it done poorly. I've been at some companies in the past where HR will effectively beg people in the company to post something nice or complimentary about the company on Glassdoor or something else. And when I hear that, I mean, that's a warning sign, right? If you have to beg your people to say nice things about the company, it's not working. It's just clearly not working. You need to foster an environment where your employees are your evangelists and your greatest boosters and cheerleaders and marketers. And if they're not, you've got a more deeper issue you've got to take care of. That's why you see the flywheel effect, that if you have a company with really good players top performers that love working there, they will recruit more people that are the same, and vice versa. If your people are unhappy, you'll bring in new people that become unhappy as well. It goes in both directions. So you're only as good as your people from an employer brand perspective. So you better invest in them so they invest and brag about you. I think it's always revealing. You can go on LinkedIn pages and see how your people describe what they do at your company. If you like it, you're probably doing good things. If you don't, or they don't say much at all, you're probably not. So I think sometimes we look at the symptoms and try to fix the symptoms without really going to the heart of the issue or the disease.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. And so let me put you on the spot. Tell me about Escalon's employer brand. Why would people want to come work for Escalon?
I think there are a few things. I think we're largely a remote company, so I think there's an enormous amount of flexibility that goes along with that. Most of our people came from a client where they were a full-time employee with one company, and so many of the people that have come to Escalon love being able to work and help multiple companies. It's actually gonna be a great experience to one, work for multiple clients, but two, work across multiple industries. So you're getting a deeper experience across different industries. I think it's the combination of those from what I can tell, and that's why I joined Escalon as well. And we talked when we first went to remote in 2020. I hated it, but now I think I'm fairly addicted to it. It'll be hard to go back to 5 days a week in the office. So I think the flexibility from a workplace perspective and from a client and workload perspective, I think is really valuable.
Absolutely. How important do you feel it is for upper management, leadership, CEOs to adopt a strong employer brand and push that to its employees?
Yeah, I think again, you've got to live your values. Again, I've been in many places where every company meeting, someone puts up a slide that lists out the company values and then explains to everyone what the company values are. If that's what you have to do, if you have to explain to your employees what they are and what they mean, you're not actually living by the values. Every employee should be able to easily talk about why the company is a great place to work. And if they can't, you're doing something wrong.
Absolutely, yeah. And that brings up a good point. One of the things I appreciate about Escalon is leadership is always available. There's an open door policy. I have direct contact with the CEO, the COO, and just for that fact, it makes it an enjoyable workplace in the sense where I can bring my ideas and they're actually heard. I'm not going through layers of management to get to the CEO that will make a decision maybe in about a month or two, right? So that bureaucracy is really not, that bureaucratic red tape is really not an issue here or seen as a negative. So and for myself in my role, that's something that I certainly appreciate in leadership at Escalon.
Yeah, and I think that's one of our strengths, and hopefully for a lot of the people on the line that are smaller companies, that should be a strength. I mean, I've worked at some big companies where it's really hard to change course and change direction, and there are some real reasons for that because there's so much bureaucracy and hierarchy and those types of things. If you're a small company, you got to be agile, and if you're slow moving as a small company, you have no one to blame but yourself. And I think you're right. I think the leadership at Escalon, from since I've been there, is very, very kind of self-aware about what's working, what's not. And if something's not working, let's talk about it and figure out a solution going forward. And what we did a year ago doesn't matter anymore if it's not working.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Excellent. Well, let's move on. We'll touch on our final trend here, and this is something that that I see on a day-to-day basis, and I think is ever important throughout the recruitment process. But that is eliminating interview biases, and then also, how do we provide the candidate the best experience possible, through the recruitment process. And so, this is something again near and dear to my heart. Part of the reason I'm in the position that I'm in is because I love talking to candidates. I love talking to great people. having open discussions around their experience and background and what they can possibly bring to a company. And, you know, the last thing I want to do is put them into a process that's, you know, there's no communication, there's poor communication, there's no direction, you know, and I want to make sure when I get a great candidate in the door that I'm with them every step of the way and I'm providing that timely feedback and allowing them the opportunity to ask questions throughout the process, you know, and so those are important things to me. So really, you know, from an interview standpoint, you know, it's important, I think, that companies instill a structured interview process. Number two, they've got interviewers on their teams that understand the process, they understand the company, they've had the interviewer training. You know, these are all things that are part of an organization's success. So, you know, really eliminating interviewer bias, I think, is a crucial step in creating a fair and inclusive hiring process. Creating, as I mentioned, structured interview processes, you know, focusing on the skills and monitoring the interview results. We've got, you know, I think you mentioned AI, so we've got a lot of that HR data-driven technology out there where we can monitor this stuff, and it's just as important. And I know that's something that we're employing here at Escalon. So let me ask you, Shannon, what are some of the effective techniques you've used to reduce interview bias within your hiring teams?
Yeah, so you know, I'm going to date myself. I've been hiring people for 30 years, and I will admit I still think I can be better. To your point, I think, and we're doing interview training internally at Escalon. It is very easy. You know, we're all very busy. All of a sudden, you've got an interview on your calendar pops up. You haven't prepared for it, and your default is really to kind of be very informal, casual, and you end up making a decision, yes or no, or good or bad, really based on personality, and just kind of who you feel comfortable with. And that's not a very responsible way to recruit and hire, I don't think. But it happens all the time. Happens all the time. It's just kind of human nature that we hire people that we think we like, or get along with. I don't think that's good for the company. I think it's good to have, you know, kind of some natural tension. You want people that will challenge things and push you as well. So hiring a bunch of people you like and want to hang out with is not necessarily the right answer. So yeah, I think, as you said, I think being much more structured and process oriented in how you interview people, I think, is important. And scheduling them and structuring them the same way consistently for every single person. But I think, as you mentioned, I think one of the big things is the communication with a candidate from start to finish. Even if the answer is a no, or, you know, not at this time, timely communication to the candidate is critical. And so many companies are so bad at that. And by the way, back to your company brand, that's part of your company brand. If you do a very poor job interviewing people and leave people with a bad taste in their mouth, they will tell other people that they had a bad experience with XYZ company. So that's part of your brand as well. You know, some tactics, I think, you know, blind resume screening, I think can be very effective. You know, kind of take that, again, take the biases out of it and really go by what's on the page. But John, you're probably, you know, better at me than this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, with AI and the trends in technology, they say, you know, recruiting is going to be outdated in a few years, and I just don't agree with that. I mean, it's a very one-on-one, personable interaction you're having with candidates, and I totally agree. The candidate experience for me is above all probably one of the most important things that I do. And it's important for me to communicate with candidates. And as you mentioned, even if they get through the interview process, I mean, I've heard stories where, you know, candidates will get right to the end and then get an automated email about, you know, how they weren't selected. I mean, that to me is, it's so impersonal. You know, you wouldn't hit somebody on the sidewalk and not turn around and say sorry, right? You wouldn't just keep going. I mean, I chalk it up to that. So
you may have invested 8 to 10 hours of your time,
yeah,
in that company, and get an automated email back. That's no good.
Yeah, and I've seen that time and time again. So, and even amongst my recruiters, you know, and we get busy. I mean, we're dealing with tons of candidates at a time, you know, sometimes hundreds, and it's hard to sit back knowing that you've got to move on to the next step. You've got to move on to the hiring decision of a different candidate, but you've got, a list of candidates that didn't make it through the process. And, you've got to take the time to touch point with each of those candidates. And I'll tell you, I've had situations many times where candidates say, I really appreciate you reaching out. And although the news isn't good, I'm disappointed, but I appreciate, the outreach. I get that all the time. It's amazing. Just a little human touch goes a long way in this industry. So, yeah, so that's that kind of, I think, sort of wrap things up for us here, Shannon. Anything else you wanted to add before we take questions from the audience?
No, let's take questions. Hopefully
Okay, sounds good. Great. So we'll see if we've got any questions. First off. Let's see. No questions yet. Okay. Okay, doesn't look like we've got, oh, you're welcome, LK. Just a comment. Doesn't look like we've got any questions from the audience here, Shannon, so we can go ahead and wrap up. I wanted to thank everybody for joining, taking the opportunity to chime in and hear what Shannon and I had to discuss today. It's been a pleasure, and Shannon, of course, love working with you, man. I tell my manager all the time. I say, I'm glad I'm doing this with Shannon because just a great personality. I think you add a lot. You've got tons of experience, and just a pleasure to be around. So, I appreciate your time and effort here today.
Thank you, John. Right back at you.
Great. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. And that'll wrap things up for us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.